Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And the latest NHS figures have been released, and they make appallingly bad reading. They make appallingly bad reading for the people of Scotland who have to put up with this terrible, terrible service. But they make especially bad reading for the SNP. They are, after all, the ones responsible for creating this absolute mess that they're currently trying to sort out. Only they're not trying to sort out at all, are they? If they had any intention of sorting out the mess they've created, they would fire Michael Matheson and get someone in who could actually spend time looking at the problems and trying to sort them out, rather than worrying about all his own personal problems involving the contents of iPads, his potential family breakup, his inability to do the job, the criminality involving the rental properties, and all the other things that may be going on inside that completely weird head of his. I say weird because he thinks he still deserves to be in his position, and anyone going through what he's had and still thinks he should be there, that's fairly weird, isn't it? Anyway, we'll take a look at the figures, take a look and see what's going on and see what they are going to try and come up with, whatever wheeze to end the sleaze that will help the NHS. Here goes. So NHS headed towards winter catastrophe with sleaze distracted SNP, says MSPs. Now, I would suggest that the catastrophe is already upon us. It's just going to be a deepening and worsening of the same catastrophe. And we are, of course, talking all about Michael Matheson. On the other hand, the main problem the SNP have got about losing Michael Matheson and putting someone else in is who the hell would you pick? Because there's none of them capable of doing their job. But at least whoever else is going in won't be sitting there worrying about any potential police investigation into the contents of an iPad. We all know what we think is on there, which is why he's so reluctant to hand it over. He claims it's football. If that's the case, he should hand it over and say, see, told you it was only football. And yet he's not. Why? Well, we know. Anyway, the latest health data only adds to fears of a looming disaster over the colder months, with both Scottish Labour and the Scottish Conservatives calling for fresh leadership. Although they'd like to see either a Tory or a Labour member of MSP running the health service, but that's for another couple of years yet. But in between, you need someone who isn't Michael Matheson, someone who is not besotted with sleaze, with corruption, with lies, with thievery, with fraud, with breaking the law, with marital problems, with all sorts of things going on. And of course, beyond all that, someone who has shown he is quite incapable of running health. He's failed. Even without all the, you put all the other stuff to the side and then just look at his record as the health minister. It's appalling. He's overseen the biggest jump in waiting lists. It's almost as though Humza Yousaf said, I was the worst ever health minister ever. And Matheson has said, here, hold my beer, watch this. Because that's where you've got to. Anyway, Scotland's health service is heading towards potential catastrophe this winter. Opposition MSPs have warned in response to new stats on waiting times and workforce numbers. These are the stats I'll say about the report, and it isn't good. So pay attention here, children. We're going to have a look at this because guess what? It's got worse. A&E waiting time targets have been missed again and show even a higher percentage of people waiting over the target for hours. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Every time they release numbers, the numbers are worse because the man at the top isn't doing his job. He's not capable of doing his job. He's distracted by all the awfulness of his personal life. Vacancies in the NHS are also at a risky level, with 6,820 posts currently unfilled. This includes 5,447 vacancies in nursing and midwifery alone. Don't fall ill in Scotland. Don't have a baby in Scotland. Ladies, I'm serious. If you are very close to your time and you think the baby is a-coming, or might well be, get in the car, drive south, go down. Durham's lovely. So, Newcastle, if you're on the other side, Carlisle perhaps, somewhere like that. And make sure you're hanging around long enough so when the kicking starts, you can run to a hospital that's actually got midwives and nurses. That's how serious it is. Anyway, heading into the colder months, it's been dubbed a terrifying indicator of what is to come, with the Scottish Conservatives stating the SNP remain miles off meeting their own waiting time targets. So the last thing we need is a distracted and discredited, lying, thieving health secretary who is engulfed in personal scandal and the potential breakup of his marriage. Scottish Labour have joined in for calls for a sleaze distracted Michael Matheson to leave his role in the wake of a scandal over his iPad data, adding he's lost the public's trust. I'm going to suggest he very unlikely ever had the public's trust. You don't trust any of these sleaze bags, do we? Public Health Scotland data showed fewer operations are being carried out, sparking fresh concerns about waiting lists and hospital capacity, with 16.9 fewer operations planned this October compared with the same month in 2019. The number of operations cancelled at short notice by the hospital for non-clinical or capacity reasons rose for the third consecutive month in October. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And remember, of course, Michael Matheson is the man who said no, he will not send patients to England, even though the Westminster government said, no, please send them down. We will help you out. Send the longest waiting. Send them to England. We will help ease your waiting lists. And Matheson said no, because to do that would have shown that he was personally a failure because he couldn't sort out his own problems. And so he is willing to let people suffer and die. 25,000 people have died on a waiting list. He's willing to let people suffer and die because he doesn't want to look like a bit of a failure as the health minister. Crimes against humanity. It truly is. He is denying available care to human beings. That's what that man is. That is a crime against humanity. This comes after news that Matheson rejected the support from Westminster, who offered surgery places in English hospitals to languishing Scots, as I've just said. A&E performance in October declined to its lowest point since March 2023, with just 68% of patients being seen within the target 4 hours. And in the span of a month, 14,203 people were forced to wait more than 8 hours to be seen. Imagine sitting there, worried, in pain, potentially in a life-threatening position, and you're waiting 8 hours because Matheson can't do his job. He's too busy sitting in his little office, looking at his iPad, knocking one out to whatever he's looking at. In the previous month, 70% was seen in the target time, so it's gone down even more again. It's getting worse. One of the key drivers behind the ongoing A&E crisis is a lack of hospital capacity linked to rising levels of delayed discharge, and also the fact that they don't have enough doctors, nurses, cardiologists, what's the breathy guys, anaesthetists, brain, bang, thinking's hard. They're across the board. Obviously, midwives, nurses, it's across the board. They can't get enough people in, and they can't retain the ones they have. Because people come into the Scottish NHS, take a look around and go, Jesus, bad it, man, I can't work here, and leave. And part of the reason there is the SNP micromanaging everything about it. Too many layers of management. You've got management so far removed from the actual day-to-day running of a hospital. We saw earlier this week, I did the video, one guy who was running the NHS Trust, Great Glasgow and Clyde, had 10 jobs. Running that hospital was one of them. Is it any wonder the NHS is failing? Scottish Conservative Shadow Health Secretary Sandesh Gillane said, this marked worsening in the A&E waiting times is unacceptable, and as we head towards the winter peak, a terrifying indicator that worse is still to come for the patients and the overstretched staff. The SNP remains miles off meeting their own waiting time targets, so the last thing we need is a distracted and discredited health secretary who is engulfed in personal scandal rather than being focused on his job. Matheson is not fit for office and he has to go. And I think everyone agrees that that man's time has come. He needs to basically pack his bags and piss off out of health, get someone in who is not going to be sitting there worried about the whatever pleasurable videos he was watching, and get someone in who could actually focus on the job and spend 5 minutes a day thinking about it rather than worrying about his personal life and attending to the sleaze allegations, to the thievery, to the theft, to the lies, to the law breaking, and of course to the forthcoming breakup of his marriage because he insists on throwing his children under the bus like a complete and utter wanker that he is. I'm coming up. Now, bad as these figures are, we're only sitting here at the beginning, well, really, technically, the end of autumn. We haven't even started winter yet. So how much worse are they going to be? Once you start getting snow on the ground, cars sliding, accidents, you're going to get old people falling over. And old people, as we know, take a long time in hospital because of the delayed sort of repair time it takes their bodies to go. It's not going to be good. You're going to get a lot more people staying in beds longer. There's going to be a lot more people turning up. These waiting lists are going to crash. And why? Because they get a man running the NHS who hasn't got a clue what to do. He doesn't understand the needs. He doesn't understand even the economics of it. All he understands is that he's got an iPad that must never fall into the hands of anyone capable of examining it. And he has to go. And he has to apologise before going for his attempted fraudulent claim of £11,000. And he has to apologise for breaking the law on his rental property. The rental property that the SNP don't want people to have. Policy in the SNP that you don't have a second home. Oh dear, Michael, how bad does it have to be for you? Is your career over? We think so, but it's afraid you're going to have to take a lot more people down before you go, because that's the SNP way, isn't it? Tosser. Stopping now. Thank you very much for watching. Do please keep up with the stories. We've got plenty more of them. It's a busy, busy day, and we're not letting the SNP off the hook on anything. So do hit the subscribe button, and I will see you later. Bye.